Good morning, dear viewers, and welcome to this new edition of Maritimafrica Live. Piracy in the Gulf of Guinea in 2021. Review and perspective. This is a topic of the discussion that we'll be having today with Dr. Ifesinachi Okafor-Yarwood. Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you?
I'm good, thank you, and yourself?
I'm fine too. Thank you for accepting our invitation.
Thanks for having me.
Okay, so could you introduce yourself better to our viewers?
Um, my name is Dr. Ifesinachi Okafor-Yarwood, or Ife, for short.
Okay,
I am a lecturer in sustainable development at the School of Geography and Sustainable Development at the University of St. Andrews. I am also a visiting fellow at the National Defense College, Abuja, Nigeria. My research centers on understanding the human, national, regional security implications of maritime threat and also oceans governance, primarily in reference to the African continent, but specifically in Western Central Africa, which is the Gulf of Guinea. Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I think this is me in simple terms.
okay. Just to start with, geography, security. When you were a child, were you dreaming of it, of all this?
Okay, that's an interesting question. Actually, I was not when I was growing up. I was more interested in sciences to the point that I was at the university in Nigeria studying chemical engineering.
Okay,
I left after a while and I came to the UK to pursue a master's. But then on arrival, I met someone that wanted me to go with her to an open day on international relations at London Metropolitan University. And it was
okay.
actually at that open day that after listening to the lecturers and the things they talked about, the amazing thing you get to do when you do IR. And I thought to myself, maybe engineering is not the right thing for me. So I had to start from the beginning. I did a preparatory diploma in law to be able to move from sciences to social sciences. And then after a year, I did a degree in international relations, peace and conflict studies at London Metropolitan University. And then later, I moved on to King's College London to do conflict, security, and development. And later, my PhD is still at King's College on leadership, security, and development. And I guess this is actually one of the reasons why almost everything I do, I try to make a connection between development, NASUS, and security, because I feel that both of them go together. You cannot understand development without understanding this security aspect of things and vice versa. So that's my story.
Thank you very much, and I think that it's good to know it. It's good to know it. Now, let's get to the point. 2021 has been a very good year for the Gulf of Guinea. Can you give us some statistics so that we can have a view of how maritime incidents has dropped last year?
Okay, thank you so much. I'm going to be using two statistics here. One from the IMB, that is International Maritime Bureau, that is in Asia, and then one from ICC in Yaoundé. The reason for using two is that the ICC Yaoundé did not start collecting data until later in 2018. However, the IMB has statistics for up to 2017, and I want to be able to sort of show us the 5 years trajectory. But as a result, I'm using a combination of the data. So to begin, I'd like to share data from IMB, which in 2017, according to their data, a lot of you already might be familiar with the IMB and the fact that they collect global data on piracy and robbery at sea. In 2017, the statistics they had for the Gulf of Guinea was 43 incidents. That is 43 incidents resulting in 65 kidnappings. Kidnapping of 65 persons, sorry. And then in 2018, the stats they have is 82 incidents, resulting in kidnapping of 78 crew members. In 2019, and this is where you start seeing a decline in, and also for me, what I see as where the region actually started making significant progress and reduction of piracy and Maritimafrica, because in 2019, the figure they have is 61, which resulted in kidnapping of 121 people. Of course, the reason for this could be that even though the incident was more reduced, they were now taking more people, because more people means they can ask for larger amount for the ransom. And then in 2020, that progress, you could say, more or less was reduced or was not sustained, because we saw reduction in 2019, but the progress was not sustained in 2020. And we can easily explain why. COVID happened. So in 2020, we had 81 incidents resulting in the kidnapping of 130 people. Again, this is still based on IMB statistics. And then in 2021, we see significant reduction, and you cannot but recognize this reduction as significant, because this is also at a time where COVID is still happening. But then you can see that there's more progress in terms of the level of cooperation between countries and intersectoral cooperation, the level of cooperation between outside entities, and also in terms of the alert, the information that can actually get out from MDAT, for example, or from the regional agencies, the ICC, to alert vessels about a high risk of piracy. And so as a result, we saw in 2021 that the figure reduced drastically to 34, resulting in the kidnapping of 57 people. And this is, again, IMB. So if we then try to look at the ICC Yaoundé data from 2018, the total number of people that were taken in 2018 was, the total number of incidents in 2018, according to ICC Yaoundé, was 95. In 2019, it was 103. And then in 2020, it was 123. And then in 2021, it was 44. Again, you cannot but recognize the significance of this reduction. And I think we also have to note that, at least from my perspective, because I'm speaking as Ifesinachi, this person that does this research, I'm not speaking as Ifesinachi, the spokesperson for anyone. And so I can say from my own analysis and having followed the trend and also observing some of the things that are also happening in the background, I feel that there's a lot of opportunities for this result to be sustained in terms of the significant reduction we have seen this year. I mean, in 2021 in comparison to previous years. And that reduction is thanks to cooperation, collaboration between countries in the region, and of course the support of outside entities in terms of the funding, the training, and other things relating to legal advice, and also supporting them to improve their laws. We also have to perhaps recognize the important role that international presence have also played, be it the exercises like Operation Current Bay, Obangame exercise, Grand Nemo, for instance, and other presences of different navies, you could say, under the EU CMP, and also other countries that have been present in the region in the last year. Those collective action have to be recognized as playing an important role in seeing the reduction we saw in 2021.
Okay, thank you very much. And I would like to know, practically, what are the causes of this significant reduction? Let's talk about the collaboration between the different nations. What have been done.
You mean what has been happening in terms of collaboration between different nations?
Yeah.
Okay. So
That has an impact on this reduction.
yeah, I think it has a definite impact because as part of the Yaoundé architecture, we have the zoning, whereby different countries. So we have the zone F, zone E, zone D, zone A, and zone G. Although I have to say now that zone A and zone G is currently not operationalized, and perhaps you can actually then ask yourself, perhaps is it probable that the lack of operationalization of Zone A, especially, have seen or could be blamed for what we see as increasing incidents in those countries. So incidents in off the coast of Republic of Congo, DRC, and Angola. In the third quarter, for example, we had a 2, 1, and 2 incident respectively. So is it probable that the lack of operationalization of Zone A might be contributing to, pirates, taking advantage of the fact that, well, if you're getting stronger at zone E, for example, or getting stronger at zone F, for instance, perhaps we can go to the other zones that are less, that are ignored. Maybe that is the case. But I can also say that in terms of the progress that we've seen, that the collaboration and cooperation between centers like Zone F, which has countries like Ghana. I won't mention, well, okay, I can mention it because they're actually very important in the whole discourse around maritime security. So land-linked countries like Burkina Faso and Cote d'Ivoire, Guinea, Liberia, and Sierra Leone as part of Zone F, the fact that they can actually share information more swiftly means that they can, talk to each other about something they see as suspicious and then be on alert. The same thing applies for Zone E. And we actually had in 2021 examples of how information sharing have resulted in what I'd say in deterrence or deterrence of attack. For example, we saw in March, in March 2021 with the case of MT Bourbon Evolution, whereby pirates boarded the vessel, but they disembarked as soon as the Nigerian Navy approached and scared them off. And this wouldn't have happened if there was no swift communication or information sharing between the centers in the region. We also saw in October, and this I'm sharing more recent incident, but this is somehow directly different, wherein the Ghanaian Navy were able to scare off pirates or deter an attack on a tuna vessel. But the difference, however, for this one is that the navies were actually providing security on board the tuna vessel. And so these are just some of the examples of how, again, the cooperation and collaboration between countries have resulted in information getting there quicker than we used to before. And again, thanks to the support of external agencies, because I know that a lot of these things around communication were funded by either entities like the European Union or other government that are supporting some of the regional centers. And so communication is something that's very important in this fight. And then being able to then send information, and then for select countries like Nigeria and Ghana, Cameroon, and other countries within the region, whose Navy might be able to then follow up on that information, that have absolutely made a lot of difference. And for me, I feel that these are some of the reasons why we saw a reduction, because it wasn't like the pirates were not trying. They were trying. There's a lot of, if you look at the ICC Yaoundé reporting there's a number of attempted attacks, for example, that were not successful because, well, the information got there on time. The navies were either able to follow through, or external navies are around as part of their usual visit or exercises, were then able to follow through and scare off the pirates. So I see this intersectoral and interagency cooperation and collaboration as something that has significantly contributed in the reduction. I hope this helps. Otherwise, I'll follow up if you have further questions.
Yes. I think we even did a live session on the sharing of information in the Gulf of Guinea, especially with the Gogin project. And I think that they did a lot in helping the Gulf of Guinea sharing information so that they can deal more with piracy. So can we say that the better sharing of information in 2021 is one of the main reasons why we had a reduction in the maritime incidents?
So we can say the better sharing of information and the better sharing, the on-time sharing, and then being able to act on the information, because, well, I can get information and sit on it.
Incident, yeah. So now when we have the better sharing, we have the sharing on time. Okay. Now the acting parts. What are the different presence, or what are the different entity that are in the Gulf of Guinea to act?
Well, at the respective national levels, we have the navies of countries involved. And the reality is also that there are a lot of small countries with small navies across the region. And this is where and why the cooperation is the key word, the importance of that cooperation between states. Because a lot of the times, countries might not necessarily be able to do things themselves. And it's only when they cooperate with each other that they can be able to work more effectively. And so when we get the information and we got it on time, we then have to be able to act on that information. And I feel that personally that the region have made a lot of progress in comparison to previously, where, for example, there was no information at all, or the information wasn't coming on time, and then acting on it is also something else, right? And so that limitation around acting is still a problem, because sometimes you might get information on time, but then it might be getting to a navy or part of the navy that might not necessarily then have the capacity to interdict immediately. And that is where the problem lies. Hence, this whole idea of Yaoundé architecture and the zoning and the idea of engaging of joint patrol would have solved that problem. But at the same time, we've also seen examples of where information have been received and they've acted on it, and it has worked well. In 2020, we saw what I see as actually something that is very important to shout about. We saw the case of the He Yunfeng, whereby intersectoral cooperation between fisheries agencies in Côte d'Ivoire, well, with the cooperation and collaboration of the Fisheries Observatory Sub-Fisheries Advisory Body, FCWC, which is Fisheries Committee for West Central Gulf of Guinea, they were able to communicate between the MCCs, and subsequently the Nigerian Navy worked with the Ivorian and the different zones, and they were able to capture this vessel. And so you see evidence of this cooperation and collaboration working in terms of acting on the information. But then there is still limitation, which is why we are also then, at least from my perspective, recognizing the need for external support. But then that external support doesn't have to happen devoid of working with regional entities or respective entities in the countries that already exist, which will then go a long way in enhancing their own capacity to be able to do it themselves in future. I don't know if I've sort of explained provide more insight to the question.
Yeah, I get it. Okay, so we can see that we have the navies from different countries, and we have the foreign navies. Let's say like that. Now we have some navies which does not have enough capacity to face, to act. Okay, and now how I would like to know how the collaboration with navies, national navies and foreign navies is done. Is there any collaboration between the foreign navies and the national navies?
Okay, so collaboration can happen in different ways. Collaboration can happen in the form of support, right? So foreign navy might support regional navies by providing training. We see this in the form of a Maritime exercise, for example, Grand Nemo, which has been happening for a very long time, and Operation Current Bay. That kind of exercises allows you to, learn more. And so I could say evidently from that perspective, you could see, because these are things that's happened for a while and it's been sustained. And there's clear evidence that at least countries or respective regional agencies or regional navies are able to maybe enhance, learn new things from this people or the support that they are getting. But in terms of cooperation and collaboration outside this kind of outfit, I think it's quite too early to talk about what that cooperation and collaboration is. I don't want to be the one to go into certain, until such question is asked directly. But I would say that in terms of the kind of exercises or training that we already have, you could say that support is already there. And with some of the results that I've given you in terms of the examples of successful interdictions, you could also say that this kind of exercises is allowing countries to learn good practice from each other and from the outside supporters, and I think also something that's very important here is the funding aspect. A lot of this success would not happen without the funding, and this is why it's like I keep going back to that external support, because I know that at least from some of the things I know that the regional, the countries in the region are also funding a lot of things, but at the same time, the support from external agencies is very important and has helped us to get to this point, and that is what I'm recognizing. In terms of the capacity of regional navies, the capacity is improving. It's not what it was in 2008. It's not what it was in 2010. Actually, countries are more aware and are able to do things to sort of enhance their own collective security, not just about piracy, but being more aware of potential threats to security in their waters, and then actively working to address this by working with other agencies. And I think that is something that is also worth recognizing. Countries in Gulf of Guinea might not necessarily be where they need to be, but then they are not where they used to be in terms of the limitations they had in previous years.
Okay. So we got a question from Peter G, who said, what are your views on the legal framework of respective countries in the Gulf of Guinea, being that not all countries in the region have anti-piracy laws?
Thank you so much for that question, Peter. I think the law is very important. And the reason why the law is important is that we can also see why and how people can get away with things if there's no legal provision on how to actually classify the action they're taking. And so one of the next step, as well as, whilst we're trying to improve communication, collaboration, and interdiction, one of the next important steps is then to ensure that when you catch criminals, you're able to prosecute them. Otherwise, this whole idea of catch and release, and which would be free for all, not only in the regions, but also will become very problematic towards addressing holistically maritime threats. And so, whilst this has been a problem for a very long time, I can say, and this is because of the fact that I have read and I have seen through the support from agencies like the United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime, UNODC, providing legal support for respective countries across the region to help them get to the point where they can enhance their laws, primarily since we're speaking about piracy. Then I can also say, so for example, a country like Benin Republic have completed the process around the UNCLOS Article 105. This is the universal jurisdiction on piracy, but the piracy criminalization, Article 101, is something that they are currently working on with the support of the agency that I highlighted. A country like Cabo Verde have and so can prosecute piracy incident if it should arise, but as we've seen from the statistics, it's basically never happened there. So they have more problem with drugs trafficking than piracy. They've never had such incident. For Côte d'Ivoire, in terms of criminalization, that is Article 101, they have fulfilled the requirement, but not the international, the universal jurisdiction. That is ongoing. There's ongoing legal reform. Ghana, in terms of criminalization of piracy, there's currently ongoing legal reform. And for Gabon, they have fulfilled the requirement for Articles 101 and Articles 105. Liberia, they have. Nigeria, we saw with the 2019 SPOMO Act, which then subsequently have been tested. So you could say actually Nigeria and Togo have met this requirement and also gone further by providing evidence that they can actually act on this. For so many other countries that do not meet either the UNCLOS Article 101 or 105, they are actually working on it with the support of UNODC. And also beyond that, and this is also very important, the fact that there are already countries that are able to get to the legal finish have meant that we can't just be talking about, oh, what about the laws? Because if they're able to cooperate beyond the collaboration and interdiction, then they can go a step further to ensure that the criminals are tried in any country. So, for example, if a piracy incident occurs in, say, Sao Tome and Principe, and they do not have a piracy criminalization or fulfill the requirement for Article 101, they can, if there's an agreement in place, agree with, say, Togo or Nigeria to then transfer the criminal there and try them there. And currently, the Economic Community of West African States, and I can speak about West Africa because I am familiar with this due to recent encounter, and I know that they are currently working with, again, the UNODC on the finalization of the terms of the handover agreement, which is something that is quite commendable. So yes, there are still countries that are working on, they haven't finalized the legal aspect of piracy and in fact other maritime threats, but at the same time they are actively working with agencies to get this right, because this is the next phase. Again, I'm speaking from a social scientist perspective. I'm not speaking as a legal expert, and even though I have sort of legal knowledge based on the diploma in law that I have, but I can't, my perspective is strictly based on the research that I've done and the work that I have done. And I can tell you that countries in the region are currently working on it. And for those that do not have it, the handover agreement, at least for West Africa, is something that should be applauded, because once it's finalized, it can then help countries that have not finalized their legal system to then transfer criminals so that they can be tried in countries that have it in place. I hope this helps, Peter.
Thank you, Peter G, for your question. I hope that you got your answer. So tell me, Dr. Ifesinachi, how many pirates have been prosecuted in 2021?
So the incident from 2021, the case that was concluded was from previously. So there is actually no pirate in terms of from 2021 incident that was prosecuted. Rather, the prosecution was from the 2020 incident, the Heyun thing, the 10 pirates, and then 2019 incident, which was finalized by Togo. So I guess if I understand your question correctly, it will be 0 from 2021 incident.
Incident, yeah. Okay. So now, why countries are having difficulties to really have laws in maritime security? Because we know that it's a big problem. Why are they not, let's say, rushing in courts to have laws in order to prosecute pirates?
Again, I'm speaking from a perspective of not a legal aspect, a legal expert, but I can say that law is not something you rush, because otherwise the criminals will identify the loophole and take advantage of it. So, and that is what I mean for Nigeria's SPOMO. They've been talking about it and working on it for years, right, before they finally got to the end. So I don't think it's something you rush. You need to make sure you dot all your I's, and this is obviously where the support of entities that have that knowledge, that have done it before, is very important, because they can help you identify potential loopholes and what can criminals might want to take advantage of. And so I think, yes, we don't have, so many countries in the region do not have that law in terms of finalized or standalone piracy law, but they are working on it to make sure that they close that loophole. But at the same time, I've talked about the fact that there's a possibility for, be it in West Africa or Central Africa, for handover agreement is a good thing, because it means that you can then have a handover agreement from one country to another, which would mean that this whole idea of we don't have the law would not stop us or countries from prosecuting pirates when there's been successful interdiction.
Okay, we will come back to that prosecution of pirates, but we have a question. Siraj Benle Eno Kenwa, who said, how has the persecution of pirates helped in solving piracy in GOG?
I think, I mean, if I'm being honest, I think it's too early to even be able to successfully deduce how. Why? Because unless, of course, okay, so I can actually say, because we don't know the background or behind the scene thing that could be happening, you know, when criminals have been persecuted and you receive information from them, do you then use that information to go and ensure that maybe the camps are destroyed or the elites that are funding them are arrested? Maybe this is some of the behind the scene thing that is happening, and maybe we can actually say, yes, the fact that they have successfully captured pirates and persecuted them, they might have received critical information from them that have then been used behind the scene to, you know, maybe destroy camps, arrest people, and which would then mean that the people that would have been engaging in some of the piracy incidents in 2021 have not gone out to sea because of this successful persecution. Perhaps this is happening, but unfortunately, I would have to classify it as behind the scene, because if we don't have any information of such thing actually happening, then it will be mere persecution, mere speculation. But the reality is that, of course, persecution would help, because if you know that, so if one, criminals now know that there is a 50-50 chance of being caught when they go to sea, and then being caught and then persecuted and then go to jail for 10 years, 20 years, then they would think twice about, is this really worth it? But currently, if they sit down and think about it, and there's a 20-80 chance, so 20% chance of being caught and 80% that they could get away with it, and then after they get away with it, or maybe not being caught, the chance of being tried is also quite limited. They will take the chance, because 80% is quite big as potentially being successful and then not being persecuted as well. So perhaps in the long term, and this is something we have to continue observing, it can serve as a deterrent if people know that they're likely to be persecuted and go to jail for a long time. And then if the sponsors are likely to be exposed as well, then potentially persecution would definitely go a long way, and is helping, or would help in the long term, to combat piracy, and not just piracy, but other threats as well in the region.
Thank you, Siraj, for your question. So, Dr. Ifesinachi, do you think that persecution is the only solution? I mean, we have to deal about the human side. What I can name the human side of piracy in the Gulf of Guinea.
Thank you so much for that question, and absolutely, I agree with you. Persecution is just an aspect of that, you know, moving trends. There are so many moving elements, and I am of that school of thought that would say that armament, or trying to find to sort of combat piracy and armed robbery through armament alone is not going to work. It's not going to be a sustainable solution. Rather, we have to go, you know, armament have to go hand in hand with addressing the social problem. Some people have actually argued that, the social issues or the human element is a long-term thing, And so we have to start with the enforcement now, get in with the Navy, with the guns and solve the problem. And then the other aspect is long term, right? But then the problem with that is, why can't both coexist? Because you're going in with the arms, and then the human issues remains unaddressed. The degradation continues, the deprivation continues, the corruption continues. You're not addressing those problems, and then you're coming in through armament. So basically, you're just trying to, okay, let's push them from piracy to maybe something else on land. And that's very problematic. And that actually should worry anyone that care about sustainable solution to this, because is the idea just about protecting a particular sector, or is the idea about actually collectively solving a problem, and then in the long term contributing to the sustainable development of a people, of regions, and the global aspect, sustainable development of the countries that might be benefiting from using the maritime domain of the Gulf of Guinea. So I feel that armament is good, but it should go hand in hand with the human element that you talked about.
Okay, we have Christophe David, who said the Yari system can share maritime information itself as evidence for trials. Yes, Christophe, thank you for following us. I think we talk about it. We talked about it.
Yeah.
Thank you for your comment. We have also Victoria Obura, who said, learning a lot from you, Ife. Just wondering if Western Indian Ocean also has such kind of platform to discuss piracy, discuss matters piracy. Thank you, Victoria Bura. I think at Maritimafrica we are trying. I think very soon we will have live session on Indian Ocean.
Dr. Victoria, thank you. So I just wanted to say something, because her comment have made me sort of remember something. This is very important in terms of talking about lessons, because it's very important that we learn lessons from other regions, right? Yeah. If in terms of the African continent, if the Gulf of Aden or the Indian Ocean have taught the Gulf of Guinea anything, it's to ensure that the process of solving piracy or other threats is quite collaborative or cooperative, and something that would ensure that at the respective national and regional level that capacity is enhanced and developed. Otherwise, when the foreign entities, when the foreign navies leave, well, it becomes free for all. In the Gulf of Aden, we could say that piracy have but stopped, but yet there's still international presence, because, well, when you leave, they come back. And countries in the region have not necessarily been empowered in terms of their navies. We have Kenya, okay. We have Somalia. Well, can they really? Because the capacity of their navies and coast guard have not necessarily been built or enhanced, because they've been relying so much on outside entities. And this is why for the Gulf of Guinea, they shouldn't make that mistake. It's very important for them to collaborate with outside entities, to work together, to learn. And even when these exercises are happening, and even when these presences are there, they should also be part of it, because they can learn a lot from it. And then, which in the long term, they can apply. And the important thing also to say is that, unfortunately, when it comes to actually walking the talk in terms of funding the activities of regional navies, our respective countries and government have to do a lot better. They are not currently, doing enough in terms of the funding. They need to do a lot better to then be able to sustain some of the progress we've seen. And that's something I wanted to highlight.
Okay, let's come back to the human side of piracy. I think personally, because it's a long-term solution, I think it's time to start now, so that we can quickly have the solution. because I watched a documentary on it, and I can see that some pirates are ready to die. So I think that if they've come to an extent that they are ready to die, I think there is a need to start addressing their problem, so that they we can have a more sustainable solution for this piracy problem. Now, I would like us to talk about a particular incident that you have commented on LinkedIn, the Danish Navy action. Before then, we have a comment. We have SQA who said, "Thank you for organizing this event. My question from Portsmouth. Nigeria is the hub of piracy, yet it has the capabilities to act. Is it fair to say that the lack of political will is the main problem?"
Thank you so much for that question, SQA. I think in the past, the lack of political will could actually be cited, and then that would be valid. It no longer stands, especially if we equate politics with government's ability to walk the talk. For example, it had to take political will for us to get to the point where finally SPOMO was passed through. It had to take political will for us to get to the point where we now have deep sea. It had to get to the point where political will for us to see the Navy, the budget, is still quite significantly low in comparison to what it should be, but to see that the Navy are supported to a point to be able to successfully do the things they are doing. So I think the political will is there, but there are still issues. The fact that as a collective, as a region, and this is why I talked about the funding, for so long, the perspective of either people looking in from the outside and even from within the region is that piracy is a Nigerian problem. And as a result of that, it might have meant that countries are not necessarily or have not done what they should have done or make the kind of contribution they should have made to see that as a region collectively that, they stem the tides completely. And so, well, it's a Nigerian problem, Nigeria should deal with it. And then the problem with this, and this is also what you see, is that when Nigeria had dealt with it, especially what is happening off territorial waters, inshore areas, or maybe closer to Nigeria, you see that it is more or less moving the pirates elsewhere to the point that Nigeria actually, you could say, is no longer the epicenter. Yes, they are still the hub wherein the bounty is returned to the Niger Delta, but it's no longer the epicenter in terms of this criminal can now confidently go elsewhere and then come back. You could make an argument that this is because Nigeria have actually done more to, ensure that they combat incidents within their waters. And this is, again, why I feel this whole idea of regional cooperation and collaboration is very important. And beyond that, just making sure that they actually walk the talk. Respective countries outside Nigeria to make sure that they fund the agencies, and then what was agreed as part of the Yaoundé agreement, their commitment, they actually fulfilling it to ensure that, for example, the joint patrol is happening more often. And so to answer that question, I'm not really sure I would say the lack of political will is the main problem. It's a problem, but it's not the main problem, given some of the examples I've already given you, because you require political will for all these things to happen. And actually, at the Nigerian level, we see some things happening. So, for example, we have the JTF, the Joint Task Force Operation, Delta Safe, for example, that have resulted in the destruction of, well, you could call it camps and holding places for hostages. We also see the Nigerian Navy have intensified their routine. We see the deep blue, and all these things takes a lot of money. And if there was no political will to combat piracy in Nigeria, I don't think they would have invested in some of these things. But there's still more to be done. So political will remains a problem, but it's not the main problem. I think that's the shortest way to answer your question.
Thank you, SQA, for your question. I hope you got an answer. We have Peter G who comes back again. How does governance deficient is in the littoral states in the Gulf of Guinea impact on piracy, and what are the possible solutions to curb this?
Thank you for that question. I think obviously if the government is not present, and by present, if they're not able to provide social goods for the people, and when we're saying littoral communities, I want to focus primarily on coastal communities because of the fact that a lot of the time for the people that live immediately around the coastal areas, their sort of livelihood is fishing, their sort of livelihood is farming. And we see that today the extent of depletion of fish stock is very, I mean, one of the highest level, not because of overfishing alone, but we see the impact of pollution contributing to it. We see the impact of climate change contributing to it. We also see the impact of illegal, unreported, and unregulated fishing. And this is happening at a time when people already feel that the government doesn't care because that social goods is not provided. And so it might not necessarily be a case of I wake up, I'm a fisher folk or I'm a fisherman, I can't catch enough fish. And so, but I need to feed my family. How do I feed my family? So it might not necessarily be that they would decide and just wake up and say, I'll become a pirate. I mean, you have to know where the gang are. You have to be connected with the criminal network for you to even decide to be a pirate because, well, this has to happen based on trust. And so piracy might not necessarily be the first thing they think about. But then we already see somehow that the scenario for someone to wake up and then decide, okay, I'm either going to take laws into my hands and successfully doing that. And then the next step, maybe someone thinking, perhaps I can actually do this. I can actually be a pirate. And I'll give you an example. In recent times, we're seeing increased incidents between industrial fishers, that's trawlers, industrial fishing vessels, and artisanal fishing vessels. And the reason is that they accuse them of encroaching the areas that's been reserved for them. In 2018, between 2018 or 2019, in Sierra Leone, for example, there was a conflict between artisanal fishers in Sierra Leone that they actually clashed with an industrial vessel from a particular country outside the African continent. And it actually took the intervention of the Navy for that conflict to sort of be addressed, or for them to be cooled off or gotten off that vessel. If that was reported, for example, it might have been reported as either attempted piracy attack without necessarily knowing the reason or the motivation behind, maybe not piracy because of the close proximity, but armed robbery at sea incident because of the close proximity. But this is something relating to fishing because people have gotten to the point where they feel frustrated. They feel that the government is not doing what they should, or they feel the government cares so much about the peanut, what I call peanut, because a lot of the times the amount that these industrial vessels pay either through licensing or agreement is so insignificant in comparison to if the country had exploited it themselves and then sold it off as export. And so, unfortunately, in a lot of these communities, we see the government are not present. And so, to the point that people are trying to do what they can to subsist. They manage, they either migrate when there's no longer enough fish. In terms of farming, some of them are no longer able to farm because the farmlands have been sold off. Well, because so many hotels or people are interested in building resorts. And so people lose their land or the land that they once relied on. And so to legally make ends meet is increasingly becoming a challenge. So for some communities, it might not actually be piracy, it might be drugs. It might just be ferrying cannabis from here to the next place. For others, the immediate response might be illegal fishing. So the government deficiency is actually a very big issue because I'm describing it or defining it as lack of government presence in the lives of people or their people, not being able to solve the immediate needs of the people. And so people then decide to take it upon themselves to fend for themselves. And I feel that the only way to solve this problem would be, yes, we require the rule of law to make sure that when criminals are caught, they are prosecuted. But at the same time, we need to provide welfare. We need to ensure that basic needs of certain communities are met, because this is the difference between a community not shielding pirate gang, for example, and being willing to tell the authorities, we think this is where they operate. and the difference between keeping quiet and not doing anything, because, well, why should we do you any favors when you haven't necessarily cared about us? I feel this is a
Exactly.
long way of trying to address the problem, address your question, but I feel to a point I hope I have addressed it, Peter.
Thank you, Peter G, for your question. So let's get back to the Danish. Let's say the Danish incident. So now, what's your view on the whole things, like the Danish Navy killing some pirates, taking some of them, not being able to prosecute them and send them back? What do you think about it?
You know, when we started, some people asked questions about the law, right? Are they pirates if they were released? I mean, that's a question I want to pose.
Yeah.
Well, are they pirates if they were released? Because if we're working within the law, again, I am not a legal expert. My knowledge of the law is limited to the diploma in law that I have. But at the same time, if someone is guilty of a crime, you don't release the person. And the only thing I can say, and I can say this confidently because I remember as of March 2021, when the Danes announced that they were going to the region, one of the questions that came up was that it was announced to the world before it was actually officially announced to the region, you know, at least out of respect. If you're coming to my house, should I know first before everyone else knows? But obviously, as of March, at least from this Ife that's observing from the outside, I knew that the issue of ensuring cooperation and collaboration with the region was raised as of March 2021. So, because then afterwards, I then read an article whereby they said that they were going to work with the region and ensure that, you know, the necessary agreements were in place, unless their view were misquoted. But this was what I read, at least that recognition that there's a need to work with countries in the region was there as of March 2021. And then to see what happened in November, it's disrespectful on so many levels. It's disrespectful. And from a human perspective, right? If you hadn't talked to me and then the incident happened and then you're coming to me, like what they say, medicine after death. I mean, even from the diplomatic perspective, it's quite problematic. And so what I could say is, without necessarily crying over spilt milk, there are so many lessons that can be learned from what happened. And that lesson is that as a region, the intent is to ensure sustainable maritime security. It's not what happened off the coast of Somalia. It's not something that is temporal. And when they leave, there's this fear that they're going to return, which is why we're seeing the UN Security Council, they keep renewing the mandate for international presence, despite the fact that piracy have all but ended, right? We don't want a repeat of that in the Gulf of Guinea. We want a sustainable solution. And I feel that sustainable solution would come with working with the region to develop the capacities. We've talked about limited capacity for certain countries, and the only way you can develop the capacities is by working together. Remember, piracy is just one problem. There are other threats. Armed robbery at sea, well, it goes with piracy. We have drugs trafficking, we have human trafficking, we have actually human illegal migration from the region to the Mediterranean is a big problem, and you need to develop the capacities of the agencies that are responsible for this. You need to enhance and encourage intersectoral collaboration, which I feel that what the Yaoundé architecture or the code of conduct represents is very important. I also feel that we actually, as a region, need to go a step further. Perhaps that why can't the agreement be binding? Because maybe this is something that is making some states a bit nonchalant about their contribution and the way that they contribute towards it. So why can't we make elements of the Yaoundé Code of Conduct a binding agreement? Perhaps this would then encourage other states to go a step further to ensure that they make their own contribution. Yeah, I mean, that's all I can say. There's a lesson that can be learned from this incident on how not to engage a region, especially when you look at the colonial history and in the past, what has happened in the past, more or less. What happened here seems to be a repeat of that, during the colonial times. I wasn't there, but a case of I can wake up, leave where I'm from, and then come here and say, yeah, I'll do this. And it has no implication. And you're doing it in 2021. You go somewhere, no, not currently colonized, and work in a way that is not neighborly or friendly is obviously something that should not be encouraged. So as we have throughout this conversation, obviously, I hope one thing people can take away is that collaboration by countries across the region and external entities is significant to stemming the tides of piracy. I don't think the region can do it without support of external actors, but that has to be done with respect. That has to be done with a knowledge that we have a collective goal, and the collective long-term goal is to stem the tides of piracy and Maritimafrica and other threats, and then in the long run ensure the sustainable development of the people in the region and those of the partners, because the fact that they generate revenue from either extracting resources from the region or using our maritime domain means that there is also an incentive for them in terms of their long-term respective national interest. I hope I've answered the question, but this is me just trying to avoid going quite into
Okay,
out
but
of control.
yeah, I think it's okay, and I like the way you answer it from the perspectives of lessons. And talking about lessons, I think what lesson can we learn from 2021 that we can use this year? But before then, we have a comment. I think it's a question, or it's just a comment. We have Emeka Akabogu, who said the entire Danish frigate issue was a fiasco. The Nigerian authorities, unfortunately, did not show enough interest in getting to the root of the matter. Thank you, he said again. The Danes showed total disregard for Nigeria. At the very least, they should have released the suspects to the Nigerian Navy for proper debriefing and prosecution if necessary. Thank you, Emeka, for your comments. Dr. Ifesinachi, what are the lessons that should be learned?
The lesson I feel that we can learn is that if we've been following the trends, if we've been, what got us here in terms of the result is that I could say the Ubuntu spirit, that collective, like together, we can achieve than apart. And I feel that we're here today because of that spirit of togetherness, the willingness to work together, the willingness to be open-minded and trust that at least at first it is in the interest of the region to combat piracy in Maritimafrica more than any other person's interest. It's because obviously if they have a lot of things to lose if criminality is free for all in the region. And so we should continue. I feel that the lesson we should learn is that there's a need to continue this whole idea of collaboration and cooperation. The lesson we can learn as a region is that our government need to do more to put their money where their mouth is. They are funding, yes, but they can do more. I know, with the pandemic, money is a big issue, but where they can, they should actually step up the game by providing the necessary financial support that is needed by respective agencies, not just the Navy, but other agencies that are responsible for maritime security. The external actors, they should continue with the support and understand that at this important time that there is a need for better collaboration. When I say collaboration, actually working with the region as partners rather than coming from, I am giving you the money, therefore I dictate what happens. I think that would not necessarily, unfortunately, work because I think this is just some of the lessons we can learn in doing things differently. And also importantly, I feel that there's actually a need. I know there's been a lot of progress. There's a need for collaboration and cooperation between outside agencies, just so we avoid replication, right? Because, for example, if there's a project from the UK or something from the UK, for example, which is no longer in the EU, and there's something from the EU, and there's something from the US, and there's something from Japan or South Korea or China, and these outside agencies are not necessarily speaking to each other in terms of their plan, it might end up leading to replication of ideas, waste of money and resources that could have gone elsewhere. And so I think also for their part, there's need for better coordination and better coordination for the things that they are doing. And I would say long may the support that we have seen from the collaboration aspect. I saw the Yaris system is the right term for it, because I know that it has definitely made a lot of difference. And so thanks is due to the EU for supporting that. We have to make that clear. And the work that the UNODC is doing, also funded in part by different
talking about the Yaris system, we did a live in French, and I think very soon we will do another one in English also. So you can continue.
Okay, no, I was just gonna say, recognizing that important thing, the Obangame exercises, and actually the money, the support that goes into making that happen, it's very important and have to be recognized. So again, the lessons that I can say we can learn is that collaboration and cooperation is the future in terms of stemming the tides of piracy and armed robbery at sea and other threats, because it's not the only problem. But I don't want to go there, because obviously this is what we're talking about. And importantly, I also feel that another lesson we can learn, and importantly, is the need for trust. Because there's been times when the issue of trust has been raised by certain people, and without necessarily providing concrete evidence on what exactly is this thing all about, right? And how can we solve it? Because if you have an issue about something, you sort of want to work together to address it. Because unfortunately, as it is today, it is still the responsibility of Gulf of Guinea countries to solve the problem. It remains a responsibility. Otherwise, we will have a repeat of the November till date incident happening again if we sort of try to do it in a way, oh, well, we have authorization by international law, therefore we can do as we please. So I feel actually this is one of the important lessons, that trust, we have to give trust a chance, because it goes both ways. Countries in the region might not trust your intent, you might not trust their intent, but you have to take that risk and meet yourselves in the middle and say, okay, we are willing to compromise here. What can we do differently to ensure a sustainable solution? This morning, I was reading about how different agencies, actually shipping industry, have made a lot of money from shipping. Actually, one of the agencies have sort of, as of this year, the profit they made, they're the second largest container carrier in the world. The profit they've made is more than the profit they've made in the last 9 years, right? Whoa. That tells you, they don't belong in the region, right? They're not a regional company. That tells you, in terms of, we talk about national interest. At the end of the day, countries are trying to protect their own interest. And the same thing for the region. And so they need to meet themselves in the middle. How can we help? What can we do differently to ensure that in the long term, we can both, benefit from the safety, not only the safety of the seafarers, but free movement of goods without necessarily undermining the security of the people that do that. And I feel that trust is a very important part of this collaboration, and for the region to continue to be open-minded, for their government to continue to find ways to fund agencies, because I think also this is a very big issue, the issue of funding.
Thank you, Dr. Ifesinachi, for your lessons. I think talking about maritime piracy, we can never stop talking about it, and I think we are running out of time. I will thank all the viewers. I will thank Emeka. I will thank Anastasia, Irwaga, Peaches G, and SQA, Victoria Obura, Christophe Deldig, Siraj, and you, Dr. Ifesinachi. Anything to say before we finish?
I don't have anything to say other than try to answer Edward's question about the projection. I would say that I don't have a clue, because the reality is that as the region is working to solve the problem and the international partners are working to solve the problem, the criminals are also re-strategizing. So we just have to be at alert. We just have to continue the cooperation and collaboration, and hopefully the 2022 figures would even be much less than 2021. Thank you so much, Maritime Africa, for having me. It's been a joy speaking to you.
You're welcome. So thank you all, and let's meet next time for another edition of Maritimafrica Live.